So what I talk to couples about is really about, it's not what I bring to the table and what you bring to the table. Where is your half? Are you matching? Are you meeting me? It is, what are we pooling together? Because if you've got $10 and this is your husband and he's got $6, it's not you got 10 and he's got 6. It's you guys have 16, and your 16 can buy a whole lot more than your 10 alone or his 6. And so if we are not collectively having the shared vision of where we are trying to go into our forevers are going to part ways.
Man, one time for that doctor. One time for that doctor. She really just dropped the blueprint for a real relationship. Who makes more in a relationship may matter depending on who those two people are. But she did just drop exactly where we need to go. If we want to see more marriages and more families, because I'm interested, for me, particularly for the Black community, I'm interested in more families. You understand what I mean? And in order to have more families, we got to redefine relationships.
One of the things that I say that the millennials have down that perhaps our generation, because I'm in the 40s too. I don't know. You guys are kind of younger, maybe, perhaps.
I'm 48. I'm right with you.
Okay, stick it out. 40. So we all here. Right. So, but with the millennials, they have more what we call egalitarian relationships, where they are equal in how they do things, equal division of labor inside the home, outside the home. They're saying, I have my own bank account. I have my own friends. You pay your half. We do our half, and we all get along. But for our generation, it's a little bit harder because, see, we are caught in the middle. We have been taught by the older generations to date like them. So the men are looking for women like their grandmothers. I want a woman who cooks, who cleans, who holds it down in the bedroom, who does all of those things. But they're not men like their grandfathers, where they could hold down a single income, go to work all day, and then come home. So they want us to do all the traditional things, but then they need a 2-income household as well. So it becomes a very difficult.
The woman on the far right, I think she is a psychologist or counselor. I'm not really sure, but she talked about people in their 40s and kind of the differences between them and the millennials. Now, I think she's off base a little bit because, you know, I'm in my 40s, and those of us who grew up in the 80s and 90s, I think that there's this misconception that, you know, men want women to do everything and work. And I think that that's a little bit off, you know, because, you know, it's nothing new. When I was growing up, most of the women that I knew, as far as the moms, a lot of moms worked. So during the 80s and 90s, it wasn't all housewives. I think that was more the 60s and 70s more than anything. But, you know, I think the reality is that when people talk about those narratives sometimes about, you know, men wanting women to go to work all day and come home and then cook and be sexy and all these things, I think that sometimes that's not necessarily true. I'm sure it happens sometimes, but I think that when it comes to doing regular things, I think it's about sharing responsibilities when it comes to cooking and or cleaning. But when it comes to the attention that you show your partner, I think that we talked about this on my podcast a couple days ago. And I think when it comes to how you show affection to your partner and things like that, I think that sometimes women are kind of adding that into the reason that maybe they're not putting in the effort in certain aspects of the relationship. So I think that that's a slippery slope.
Hold on now. There's some good men out here who got plenty of paper and do everything.
Well,
you said we don't want to do both. Now, it's a lot of us that do everything.
Listen, most men cannot do, in today's economy, most men cannot do a single income home. It takes in this society 2 incomes nowadays for most people to hold things down.
We're talking about in Atlanta?
I'm talking about all over the country. The average income, especially in Atlanta, right now we are the #1 city for inflation. So when you talk about just the idea of home ownership, most people are being priced out of being able to live in this city where they grew up. And so it's a really interesting perspective because right now we need 2 people, we need 2 incomes and sometimes 3 and 4 with part-time jobs to be able to hold down a household. And so what happens is you have women who are saying, listen, I cannot go to work all day and then come home and take care of kids, do homework, swing from the chandeliers at night, and then get up all over the next day to do it all over by myself.
Now, that's the narrative, again, that I think that we got to stop pushing that. You know, as men and women, most people who have, as far as from what I see, maybe this is happening, I don't know. I'm sure I feel like those situations are anecdotal where the woman is doing everything and the man is doing minimal. I think that most men and women who are together, married or together, have children in the house, I believe that the dads are cleaning, the dads are cooking, the dads are helping kids with homework. I think that any balanced relationship, these things are shared. It's not one person doing everything. So I think that that's not the majority of women aren't doing everything in the household. So I think we need to stop pushing that narrative, because I think that there are many women in relationships who are kind of taking on that badge as if, oh, I do everything, so therefore I can't devote energy into my relationship.
And a lot of men go, oh, but my grandmother could do that.
I've been having these conversations with my friends that are all in the mid-40s, very successful women, and then their men are one foot on one way of thinking and the other foot on the other. They want all the benefits of all that stuff. And if you're working as hard as your man or more and contributing 50% or more, are you less motivated to then be that freak in the bedroom and be that enthusiastic cook every day and clean the house as well when you're working just as much as your man contributing to the house? Do you think that's fair?
I had my first place when I was like 21, cooking for myself, cleaning. I mean, these things are just things that adults need to learn how to do. So I don't think those are premium things that people do. Again, I think if a man and woman are together and you live in a house or apartment, whatever your dwelling is, everybody should be able to clean if you're an adult, right? So I don't think that men necessarily say, hey, I want to sit back in my king's chair and have a woman serve me per se. But I do think there are things when it comes to just managing a house. You know, as an adult, you should want your house to be clean. There's this idea that I think society's pushed on women that if you work, you should abandon anything that's traditional. And I think that is for men too. I don't think men should abandon things that are traditional. You know, like if you're a man, you should be taking out the trash. You should be shoveling the snow, mowing the lawn if you have a lawn. If there's something that needs to be fixed, you should be fixing it. Those are things that are traditional. Now, am I saying a woman can't do those things that men typically do, or a man, or vice versa? No, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that it's really about people contributing together.
When it becomes a competition, then your relationship is already doomed. Right? Because what happens is we miss out on the two becoming one. And if two never really become one, then you're doomed to fail. So to your point, when you say these women come and they say, well, I want a man who has this and this and this. Well, what do you bring to the table that complements that is going to nurture that is going to grow, foster, and further develop that? But then also, do you understand what you're asking for? You say you want a doctor who's a surgeon. Do you recognize what that lifestyle really looks like? You love a man in uniform. You want a firefighter. Do you realize that he's going to be gone or she's going to be gone 4 days a week at the fire station? Are you really ready for that life? And so oftentimes we don't really have a real idea of what it is that we're asking for. And we're not prepared to step into those places to really grow and continue those relationships. They're fantasies. It's not reality.
That was such a good point. That's what it's become. Most people look at relationships as fantasies. And again, I don't think that the people in there, well, look, there's problems with people in their 40s and in their 20s, whatever the case is. But I think the problem is, for the millennials, for the younger people, relationships are extremely transactional now. They are extremely transactional. It's gotten to the point where people are like, well, what can I get? What can I get from you? What can you bring to the table as far as something financial to impress me? I think that's a problem more with the young people, but it's definitely happening with the older people too, because at this point now, a lot of people in their 40s and 50s, they're now at a point now they don't have a lot of patience to really try to meet somebody. That's just my opinion. But I think that ultimately, if you want to see more relationships, you just have to be able to want to meet actual people. And she made a great point about having an idea of who people are. You know, you may want somebody who has a particular job. You may be impressed by it, but what is the day in, day out life of that? So let me know what you guys think in the comments. I think that was a great panel. So we talk about that a lot of times on my panel. So let me know what you think in the comments. Crucial Convo.